Hi, Ramona Sonine here, and what I'm going to show you in this video is how to make a simple, clean mood concept board in Illustrator. So the way to get started and what I've asked and is of my students in this project is to do a 14 by 17 board or document. Mine's already set up, but just remember to do this, you just go to File, New, just like any other program, and right here you're going to type in the width and the height, whether you want an orientation, like mine landscape, so you'll see the width is 17 and the height is 14. If you would like your orientation to be portrait, where the height is 17 and the width is 14, then just click this icon here. But otherwise, if you want to do landscape, personal choice completely, don't do landscape just because I am, okay? And then what you're going to see here is maybe on your computer it might actually default to points. Make certain that you go and hit this arrow and get the drop down and make certain that it's inches. And then you're set up, you hit OK, and this is what you have. So I have in life 14 by 17 document, and for you to be able to know this, or if you'd like to have rulers and guides around, if you just hit your Command or Control R, your rulers will pop up here, and then that'll help you kind of see, right here we're seeing 17, we're seeing 14, you can kind of get an idea of the middle and all that stuff. So we're ready to go. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to insert a file that I've saved onto my desktop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do File, and I'm going to go to Place, and I'm going to find it on my desktop. And oh, these icons are so small. Let me see if I can see them. Let me just start doing this. I think it's this one, and it is. So I'm going to place this, and it says here that it's linked. So I'm going to hit this and place it, and I'm going to click once and it pops in. And so it's embedded in the document. If you see up here, that means it's part of the document. It's not an image that's linked to it and you need it. Now it makes for a larger document, but you're going to save this as a PDF for me and turn it in. Reason being, very often you guys will do this and then you'll go to another computer and you don't have the image and the computer's looking for the image. So this way it's part of it, it's in the image, so here we go. Now what I'm going to try to do is make this the size of this background, but you're going to see that this square is not working well with my rectangle. And what I'm doing here to see this hand pop up, which is right over here, and it's your hand tool where you're able to move things around. If you hold the space bar on your computer and then click and move, you can drag around that way. It's a nice shortcut to know. What I'm going to do is get this stretched out. I'm going to hold the Shift key as I do this because I want to keep the image constrained. I don't want it to get distorted. So I'm going to hold the Shift key as I make it large enough to fit in my document. Now if you do this and you want to zoom out a little bit, you can hit Control or Command, and it would be the minus sign on the top right of your keyboard, and you can do this and it'll zoom back out. And so what you can see is you can move this around a little and get an idea. So in Illustrator, I can't necessarily just hit the crop tool like you can in Photoshop. So what I need to do is do a clipping mask to this, which is going to be a mask the size of this box. So what I'm going to do is go to my rectangle tool and click and hold, and I'm going to pull over to rectangle, and I'm going to have a white fill. I just like to have a fill so I can see the box. I do not want a stroke. If yours happens to have a black stroke like this, hit the drop down and hit none, and it'll go away. So what I'm going to do now is I've got my rectangle tool. I'm going to draw a rectangle. Let's see. The size of my document, and there it is. So now what I'm going to do is hit V, which will take us back to the selection tool. This is a shortcut you should know and know well, okay? V is your selection tool, and it'll always take you back to where you can click things. Illustrator wants you to click things to make it work. And then I noticed right here I didn't draw it all the way down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in, which is Command plus sign, or over here you can use the zoom tool, and if you notice if I hover, Z would be the shortcut to that. So if you just hit Z on the keyboard, you can actually draw around the area that you want. I'm going to hit V to go back so I can select this and then drag it down. So that way it's perfect and it fits perfectly. And also too, what you might want to know is if you hit Command 0, it'll take it to the full screen size of the document. So back to that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm on V, which is my selection tool. I'm going to be able to take my image and I'm going to zoom out just a little, Command -sign, so I can kind of get this where I wanted it. And let's see, I want it a little smaller like that. And you can come back later once you've clipped your mask actually and adjust this if you would like. But I'm going to get it to where it's kind of close. There we go. Holding the Shift key every time I change it so I don't mess with the proportions. Now what I'm going to do is take a clipping mask and I'm going to see this white box. The object that you want to clip it to must be in front of the image. It worked out this way in this drawing that it was, but for some reason if you have an image and it's in front of the box that you drew, it needs to go behind it, and I can show you how to do that in a second. But what we're going to do now is you need to click that box and hold the Shift key and make certain the image is selected too at the same time. So like I said, you can click one, hold the Shift key. That allows you to select as many different items as you want. Also too, what you can do is in selection, if you just draw a little marquee box, as long as you touch both of them somewhere, see how they both highlight and they're both selected. So either way you can do it. So at that point you're going to right click or hit Control click if you're on a Mac without a mouse. I'm on my laptop, so I'm going to go to Make Clipping Mask. And there you go. It clips it to the size of the document, which was the rectangle that I drew. And that's if you want an image behind it. If you don't want an image, you can just do that rectangle box and fill it with a color. You know, and I'm actually going to be doing that in a little bit just to show you how to do color chips. So the same thing would apply. It would just be larger in the size of the document. So I have this. I'm going to hit V, make sure I'm on selection, which I am. And if you notice, you can see the ghost. So it doesn't really go away. What it does is it clips it to the shape that you dictated, which was that rectangle. So we're ready to go. So the next thing I want to do is I want to file and I want to place my next image, which would be, let me see, her. I think I want to use her. Oh yes, I definitely want to use her. And so here she goes. I can click once and it'll go to scale, or if I click and hold and drag, I can put her in the size I want that way. So I have her. I'm going to move her over here, and I think with her I want to show you something that's kind of neat. I'm going to hold the Shift key so she stays constrained. Now what would happen if I didn't? You risk this. Oh, I messed up. Let me see if I can get it back. And then she just gets all distorted. So Command Z will take you back as many steps as you need to go. And know that one and know it well because it corrects all your mistakes. It's a great. Command Z. Don't forget it, or Control Z. So I'm going to click it, hold Shift, and like I said, just pull her down and she stays constrained. And with her, what I think I'm going to do, this is where I can show you how to send an object behind another one. But the first thing I want to do is change the opacity on this one. So if you notice, if I click on her, she's highlighted. I don't want her. I want the background image now. So click away, click on her, or on the background, sorry. If you go up here, here's opacity. So I'm going to play around with the opacity a little bit and kind of knock it down. You can always go back and play with that later. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take her, I'm going to right click, or on a Mac, I don't have a mouse, so I'm going to do Control and click, and I'm going to arrange and send it to the back. This actually sends her back behind it, and you can kind of see her through. So now what I want to do is play with the opacity again, so I can get her to kind of come through in the background. So I have something like this now. So this is something that I want to play with. And so now the next thing I want to do is I want to place another image. Now, I mean, like I said, I'm embedding these, and we'll talk more about linked images and embedded images a little bit later, but right now I'm just putting them in. I unchecked link. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to put her in. And I guess we all know why I want her in, right? So look at that hair. So same thing, I can click once and she'll go to scale. Or remember, you can drag it in and make it the size you want. But I'm going to hold the Shift key, get her up in here, the size I want up in here. Now what's going to happen, and I want to zoom in, so I'm going to hit Z, which is my zoom tool, and I'm going to draw a box right around here, so it's going to zoom into that. Maybe I want to zoom in a little more. So here she is. Now I'm going to hit V, which is a shortcut to take me back to the selection tool. That way I can select her. If you notice this text here, I want to get rid of it, and you can't really get rid of it in Illustrator because it just distorts it if you try to do that. In terms of doing a cropping an image like you would in Photoshop, what I'm going to do is do another clipping mask. Remember, we clipped the image to the size of the board. Now I'm going to clip a box the size of her arm from here to here. I'm going to draw a box, leave the text out, and I'm going to clip it to this box, and you'll be able to see how we can get rid of it. So I am definitely going to zoom in a little more so you can see. So I'm going to do this, and now what I'm going to do is V, selection, go to my rectangle tool, make certain that I just want a white box. I like to use a white box, that way I can see if I've gotten the edges the way I want them. I'm going to start down here because I want to make sure that I'm going to get the text to go away. So I'm going to start right here in the corner, and I'm going to build a box the size that I want to clip to this image. So there it is. And a white box should go on top of her, which it did. So now what I'm going to do is hit V, which will take me back to the selection tool. And I want to clip this image to this box. They both need to be selected for that to happen. So white box is selected. I'm going to hold the Shift key and select the image behind it. I know they're both selected because I can see the blue line running down here and the blue line there. So then Control or right click, make clipping mask, and there she is. So now with this, what I can do is I want to add a stroke around her. If you did, this is a way that you could do it. So if you go here and hover, you can edit the clipping path, or you can edit the contents of the clipping mask. So editing the contents means that I can move her around or whatever you might want to do. I don't want to do that. I want to work with, and what I'm in right now is isolation mode. You just keep clicking until it highlights exactly what you want to work with, and to get out of it you just click. So I'm going to click on this. Remember, edit contents. I want to edit the path. And if you notice, as soon as I hit path, this popped up. I have the option of a stroke. Only the image around it, the path around it, is selected, which means that white rectangle that we did at first, that's what it's selecting. What I want to do is put a white stroke around that. And I'm going to play around with the stroke weight here. So I'm going to put a 0.125. And then even here, you can play around. If I wanted the caps to be round on the ends, it rounds them off just a little. I'm going to click away off over here, off the artboard, and you can see how it gives me a white kind of stroke around this image. So now I've got this, and so maybe the next thing I want to do is File, let me place one more. I mean, please add more images. I'm just doing a few so you can get the feel of it for a mood board. Let's see what else I want to put in here. Yes, I'll do this one. And I'm going to place, and this time I'm going to drag her in, kind of the size I want her, somewhere around there. Now I'm going to move her, and I want her centered, and so if you notice that pink line is letting me know that that image underneath is centered with the one on top, so I trust the computer, and I let it do its thing, so I let up, and there she is. Now, what ends up happening with her is she doesn't have a layer mask, so when I click on her, I click away. This happens. When I click on her to try to get to the stroke, I can't. So what you need to do, since there isn't a mask on her, is to hit mask, and then this pops up, and then it gives me the option right here, once again, to add a stroke around. I am going to do 0.125 and make certain that the caps are rounded, since the other one, the caps and corners are rounded, so she works with the other one. And so now I have a couple of images here. And so you can fill this up with images if you would like. And so now you can fill this up, but let's say at this point you've got all the images and you want to do like a color story, or you want something to run through the bottom. What I would suggest then is you come here. What I would do is, you notice that this is on, so I'm going to turn off the stroke, which is what would go around a box, and then I'm going to turn on the fill. And so with the fill, you get these great colors that come with you. Yeah, right. So let's say these certainly aren't going to be colors that you probably would use too much, and you want a different color. So if you hold the Shift key and click on the fill, this pops up. Same thing, I'm going to click away. The same thing with the stroke. If you wanted to add the stroke, and you would do this, and you start to get these options here. So I'm going to do it with the fill because I want to make a rectangle. And so I'm going to start just playing here. I'm just going to grab one color of green, and then I'm going to double click on it, and this pops up. And I just like to work this way. It gives me a better feel for what I'm doing. I'm going to say, okay, this is one of the greens that's going to be in my color story. I'm going to grab my rectangle. You know what, why don't we do circles on this one? So I'm going to grab my circle, and to make a circle you use your ellipse tool. And an ellipse is just a circle in perspective. To get a perfect circle, you hold the Shift key while you draw. And if you want to draw out of the center, you hold the Shift key and the Alt key together, and it draws out from the center like that. Now, if you don't hold the Alt key and you just hold the Shift key, it'll draw from where you first started. It's up to you. I prefer to draw from the center because then that way I can kind of get them filled up. So let's say I have this one. I'm going to hit V, which is selection, and click away, and I've got this. So maybe I want a white stroke around these two, just because they're a little more challenging to see. What is this? 0.14. Let's see. Let me do that one. So 0.63. And now all I have to do is I'm going to take this, and instead of trying to keep drawing the same one, if you hold the Alt key and drag, it makes a copy. Then let up from the Alt key. I'm going to go up here, hold the Shift key. Let's say I want something in the warm yellow family. I get close to it, then I double click, and this allows me to kind of play around. And let me get something a little lighter, something like that. I'm going to hit OK, and there's my next one. So click away, then hold the Alt key, click and drag, and the computer will tell you, if you notice right here, they're centered now and they have the exact same space in between. Choose another color. Let's do something in this family. Maybe something like that. And hit OK. And there it is. And same thing, let's do one more color story. Hold the Alt key and drag, makes a copy. Go up here. Let's get a good brown going. Nice brown. How about that? Hit OK. And so now I have these. Now if you want to space them out more, you certainly can use this. Move them. If you want to move all of them at once and you have them spaced the way you want, click one, hold the Shift key, click the next thing you want to select, click the next thing you want to select, and click the next thing you want to select. And you can move it. Now what you need to do after that is, once, let's say you've got them the way you want and you're not sure where you want to move them, instead of having to select Shift each one every time, if you go to Object and hit Group, or the shortcut, as you can see, is Command G. If you hit Group, what that does, since they're all selected, it turned this into one group. So now when I click one, I can move them all. And at this point too, if you go over to the corner, and if you want to move them, I'm going to zoom in, and that would be Command +. I'm going to click it. If you go to the corner, I can rotate it. And if you have a hard time keeping them straight, if you hold the Shift key right when you start to get close to where you want it, in terms of it being vertical, the computer will straighten it up for you. I'm going to hit Command -, and I'm able to do this and move them here. So then you can fill this up if you would like with colors or something that the scheme of your concept or what's going to go on inside of your store in your retail, getting it together. So now the last thing you would need to really know is if you wanted to add text. But I did want to show you too that if I had this image, let's see, I'm going to just duplicate her really quickly so you can see. And I'm going to bring her over here, and I have this, and I'm right-clicking and I'm telling it to release the clipping mask. The reason it has a clipping mask, remember, is because when we clicked it, she's embedded, and then I had to hit mask for that to be able to happen. So now let's say you wanted to have a shape. You don't always have to do it with rectangles. You could even do it with a star. Let's say I'm going to do a star right across her face, just like that. And bring it in right here. Let me make it a little bit smaller. So I'm going to hold the shift key while I pull the corner in. Do this, maybe rotate her. Get the star the way I want it. And then hold the shift key, select the image as well, right click or control click, make a clipping mask, and then, I mean, this is still there from the beginning, so let's get rid of that. And then you could actually clip images into shapes also. So if you wanted to do something like that, and then remember, if you click on this, you can play around with the inside, or you can play around with the mask. Let's say you want a stroke, we can do a white stroke again. Let me do it the size of the other ones that I had, which was 125. Hit the stroke right here. I want to make sure my cap's round and my corner's round. Now you don't have to do that. I'm just doing it to soften the edges. You certainly do not have to. And then you have this here, and then you can hold the shift key, make her smaller if you wanted to, and you could have something down there even if you wanted. So that's the way to clip something in terms of getting it into a different shape. And so right here, here are some of your basic shapes right here. Your rectangle, your rounded rectangle, ellipse. Remember, your ellipse tool can make an ellipse, or if you hold the Alt and Shift, you can draw a perfect circle. Either way on those. So I'm going to hit V, select that, hold Shift, select that, and delete those. And so that's how you can actually clip an image. Let's say I'm looking at that. I'm going to go back to stroke. That's just too big of a stroke, I think, for such a tiny little image. So I'm going to do something along those lines, and you can play around with that. So now you have this little superstar up in the corner. Let me make her a little smaller even. And the next thing is text. And text is right here, is if you hold the type tool down, or I'm sorry, if you select the type tool, what's end up happening is you'll click here and you'll notice this starts to kind of beep, beep, it pulses and you can see it. It's no different than working in a Word document. Right now I have it at 12 point. You can go here and make the font larger. Let's see, let me go a little 60, might be bigger. And also too, just because this is what Illustrator offers you, I mean, please know you can go in here and I might want to do 150 points for my text. And so you can see that it's larger. Also here, I can play around with any fonts that I have. So you can change fonts. Let's see what I have that might be appropriate for this one. We can do handwriting Dakota and see if that's it. And then whatever title you want to give it, whatever it might be in terms of being inspired. You know, I don't know. Nature's Star, how about that? Hit escape. So if you look at the top right, or sorry, top left of your computer, there's an escape button. Hit escape, because what that does is when you're finished typing, it takes you back to the selection here, and this all of a sudden gets a box and you can move it. So now, let's say, well, that's just too big, so you can actually, now with this, it's a box, and you're thinking, well, maybe I want this text to be white to go along with everything else. So now all I do is I hit the T or I go back here, and the reason I said T, because if you notice here, that's just a shortcut. So I'm going to hit T. You get your box little back. As soon as you see this, click and drag and highlight it, like you would in a Word document, you know, to highlight something you wanted to copy or change or anything like that. I'm going to go over here and put that in white, hit Escape, and there it is. So back to my V, and I can move this around, and V just takes you back to selection. Remember that. So you have this, and let's say this is not working for me. I have that, and that's where I want to do it. Or now you can start playing. Maybe I want to put it in here. Maybe I want to do this and bring this one back and rotate it. Remember, if I hold the Shift key, as I start getting close to what I want, it'll straighten it up for me. Maybe I want to do the colors here. The computer will let me know when it lines up with certain things. And you can just start filling this all up with images. And this is a way to make a really simple, really clean, mood board in Illustrator. Okay?